He poured coffee the same way every morning. Slow, steady, never spilling a drop. The regulars called him Mike, tipped well, and never asked questions. He wore the same faded denim shirt, kept his head down, and ran the quietest coffee shop in town. But one Tuesday morning, a young Marine walked in wearing his dress blues, and something about the way the old man gripped the counter made the entire room go silent. Because behind his rolled-up sleeve, just visible for half a second, was a tattoo no one was supposed to see. Not a flag, not an anchor. A number and a symbol that only existed in declassified files from operations that never officially happened. And when the Marine asked a simple question, "Sir, where did you serve?" the answer didn't come with words. It came with a look that made 3 other customers stand up at attention without knowing why. Welcome to Silent Stories. Before we begin this powerful story of silence, service, and unexpected recognition, tell me in the comments, from which city are you watching this video today? And if you believe that real heroes walk among us unnoticed, hit that subscribe button. These stories matter. The coffee shop sat at the end of Main Street, tucked between a bank and a flower shop. Its storefront was narrow, its windows always spotless but never flashy. Inside, there were 6 tables, a small counter, and an old wooden menu board hanging on the wall. The prices were fair, the coffee strong, the atmosphere quiet. This wasn't a place for Instagram. This was a place where people came to actually drink coffee. Mike ran the shop alone. He opened at 5:30 a.m., closed at 6 p.m. Every day, the same routine. Clean the machines, wipe the counter, line up the cups, unlock the door. He didn't talk much, but he was polite. He didn't smile often, but when he did, it was genuine. Customers knew very little about him, that he wasn't married, had no children, moved to town 8 years ago. Some thought he was a former truck driver. Others guessed a retired teacher. No one knew for sure, and no one asked. But careful observers would notice certain things, that there was always an empty cup sitting near the register in the back, that Mike never turned his back to the door, that when a customer walked in, he knew who it was without looking, and that his hands, despite pouring so much coffee, never shook. That Tuesday morning started like any other. At 7:15, the regulars began to arrive. Sarah, the nurse, picked up her usual latte. Tom, the construction worker, grabbed his large black coffee. Same story every time. Walk in, order, thank him, leave. And Mike was the same as always. Quiet, efficient, invisible. At 8:43, the door chimed, but this time, it felt different. The man who walked in looked young, maybe 25, maybe 26. His marine dress blues were immaculate, buttons gleaming, cover set at a perfect angle. 3 rows of ribbons decorated his chest. His gait was military, but his face carried a weariness, a deep weariness, the kind that came from a man recently returned from war. Mike stood behind the counter, wiping down a cup. When the Marine entered, he looked up. And for just a second, just 1 second, the cup froze in his hand. Only a second, but those who watched carefully would have noticed. The Marine approached the counter and nodded respectfully. "Good morning, sir. Black coffee, please." Mike nodded, took a cup, turned to the machine. He said nothing, but his back had tensed. His shoulders were a little straighter. As he poured the coffee, his hand was steady as always, but this time there was something else, a recognition, a remembering. He set the coffee on the counter, stated the price. The Marine paid, took the cup, but he didn't leave. He just stood there looking at Mike. "You served too, didn't you, sir?" Mike's face didn't change. "Long time ago." "What branch?" Mike hesitated, then simply said, "Navy." The Marine nodded. He brought the cup to his lips, but his eyes never left Mike. As he sipped, Mike folded his arms. And that's when it happened. The sleeves of his denim shirt rolled up slightly, and there on the inside of his forearm, faded but still visible, was a tattoo, numbers, and a symbol. The Marine's eyes widened. He slowly lowered his cup. That's a MACV-SOG tattoo. Mike quickly lowered his arms, adjusted his sleeve. He said nothing. The Marine continued, his voice softer. Sir, I studied military history at the academy. I know everything about MACV-SOG, covert operations in Vietnam, behind enemy lines in Laos and Cambodia, the most dangerous missions, the highest casualty rates. He paused. And I know that tattoo was only worn by operators who were there. The other customers in the shop were listening now. Sarah, frozen with her cup in hand, was staring. Tom, seated at his corner table, had given his full attention. Mike simply said, Old days. Sir, the Marine continued, I was in Afghanistan in 2019, Helmand Province. It was rough, but our instructors told us about men like you. They'd say, you think you're doing something hard? Those men walked through enemy territory with no radio, no support, not even maps, and nobody knows their stories. Mike nodded. They don't need to. At that moment, an older man sitting in the corner stood up. His hair was gray, his face lined with age, but his posture was still military. He walked slowly to the counter. Mike, he said, his voice trembling but clear. I've been drinking coffee here for 8 years, every day, and I never asked. But now I need to. He paused. Where in Vietnam did you serve? Mike looked at him. There was a long silence. Everywhere, he finally said, but mostly places no one was supposed to know about. The old man nodded. I was with the 1st Cavalry. 68 to 69. I was at Ia Drang. He extended his hand. And there are men I never met that I respect more than anyone I know. SOG men. If you're one of them, his voice cracked, then you're a hero to me. Mike shook his hand. He said nothing. But something in his eyes changed. A softening. An acceptance. Sarah, the nurse, came to the counter. Her eyes were wet. Mike, I didn't know. You didn't need to, Mike said gently. I just make coffee. That's all. But the Marine shook his head. No, sir. You do more than that. For people like me, you show us a normal place after we come home. A quiet place, a safe place, without questions, without stares. He paused. I want you to know that service too. Mike lowered his head. For a long time, he said nothing. Then simply, thank you. From that moment on, the shop was never quite the same. The change wasn't big. Mike still opened at the same hours, made the same coffee, remained the same quiet man. But people began to see him differently. Customers were a little kinder when they came in. Some looked at him with respect as they drank their coffee. And a few veterans, without introducing themselves, simply came to the counter and said, Thank you, brother. Mike never told stories, never spoke of his medals, never explained his past. He just showed up every morning, made his coffee, served his people, and quietly closed at the end of the day. But something had changed. Now, in that small corner of town, in that small coffee shop, people were aware of something. Some heroes don't wear uniforms. Some don't display medals. Some just make coffee. Calm, quiet, invisible. But they're there. They're always there. Men like Mike don't tell their stories. They don't want recognition. They just live their lives. But for those who know them, their presence means more than anything else. Because true courage doesn't come from shouting. It comes from carrying things quietly. True service doesn't live on the battlefield. It lives in daily life, in small gestures, in sacrifices no one sees. And sometimes, just sometimes, someone looks carefully, sees a tattoo, notices a movement, asks a question. And in that moment, history's silent page opens for just an instant. Mike's story is one of thousands. But they all matter. They all deserve to be remembered. And they're all waiting for us to see them. So have you ever met someone like Mike? Someone with a past no one knew about, who lived quietly, who refused recognition, but left a deep mark? Write their name in the comments. Tell their story. Because it's silent stories We're here to make sure these stories are never forgotten. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next story. Until then, if you see an old man sitting quietly, don't ask who he is. Just show him respect, because he may have done things you'll never know about.